Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. Let's jump right into episode 2. So in episode 1, we discussed the Luigi story, which was the first big experience that happened for me. Before I get into the next story, I want to just take it back a little and explain some things that were happening in my Reiki appointments. So at this point in my Reiki energy journey, I was getting really good at knowing where the pain was in your body, knowing about things you were going through in your life, knowing about different emotions that you were experiencing. I'll talk about this more in detail about future episodes. And to me, I just thought that was Reiki and that everybody could do that. So as that started to evolve, I would be working on a client and I would start to think of a name. So for example, I would think of the name Sam. And it would repeat over and over in my mind. And it would be where I really wanted to ask the person who Sam was to them, or I would get the feeling that Sam might be their aunt. So in my mind, I would think, I'm not asking this person if they know a Sam. That's crazy. They're here for Reiki. It's a silent treatment. Just keep working. Then something weird would always happen. My iPad music would shut off, something in the room would fall, a bug would fly into the window, and it would startle me. All of a sudden I would ask the client, do you know Sam? Or do you have an aunt named Sam? Or whatever information that I had. And the client would answer, yeah, I have an Aunt Sam, but she's passed away. Oh, okay. So this started to happen to me at every appointment. Names would come up, and I wouldn't want to ask the client. My iPad would restart, and then I would ask the person about the name. It got to the point where before my sessions even started, I would tell my clients that if my iPad restarts in the middle of our session and the music shuts off, it's because I have something to tell them and I didn't want to. And sure enough, every time my iPad would shut off and I would have a name to tell the client. I became really interested in why the names of these dead people were coming up, so I started to do some research. I was reading articles online, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, looking for information on what was going on. I read that this could be a sign that a loved one who has passed away was trying to come through with a message. But you telling your client the name of their aunt isn't very helpful. But you telling the client that their Aunt Sam wants to let them know that she knows about their new child, that is helpful. One article that I read said that you can ask for more information to help you in validating what they want and to get the message across. So I started to do that. I would ask for more information other than just their name. I remember my hairdresser came in and I asked her about a man named George who had 3 kids and something about his right foot. Maybe he's a soccer player, maybe it was hurt, I didn't know. She said she had an Uncle George with 3 kids, but he was still alive. I'll touch on this story later, but that was just an example. So a few times, people would come up in sessions, but they didn't belong to the client on the table. For example, I would ask someone, do you know a John, a young man who died in a car crash? But it didn't resonate with that person. So it kind of felt to me like these people were following me around until I found their respective owners. Maybe John belonged to a client that I was having later that afternoon or the next day. And then there was Mary. Mary was a meek and timid soul who was with me for a few weeks before I found her owner. All I knew was that she was small, she fit under a table, and she was wearing white and had a gold infinity-style image around her. I would ask client after client if they knew this Mary and give them all the information that I had. I had my neighbor come in for a session one day, and I asked her if the details of Mary resonated with her, and she said no. She made a little joke at the end of the session about trying to find Mary's owner. I explained to her that I didn't really know what was happening, but these people kind of following me around until I find out who they belong to. A few days later, we're at my neighbor's house and talking about the Luigi story. I'm discussing my crystal healing class and what happened, and my neighbor kind of brings it up as a joke. Hey, have you found Mary's owner yet? And in the same moment, her mom's face goes blank, and she turns to me and says, my daughter's name was Maria. And I instantly start bawling my eyes out, screaming, it's her, Maria, it's your daughter. Somehow, instantly in that moment, I knew that the soul had found who it was trying to get to. When everyone else was like, oh, Maria might be this person, or Maria might be that person, my immediate instinct was, no, not her. But when she said, my neighbor, that's my daughter, something just took over me and I started bawling my eyes out uncontrollably. I fell to the floor, and there was a few people at her house and they were kind of like, Steph, what is going on? I just couldn't stop yelling, it's her, Maria, it's her. So after I finally composed myself slightly, I start to describe what I knew about Maria. I said she's small, she's white, she's very timid, she fits under a coffee table, so she's young, and she's gold. I don't know, was her personality golden? Was she golden? I don't understand. She's glowing gold, and I started to do this hand motion with my hand in the figure 8, and I said, all I see is this image of gold. At this point, the mom is crying, and she says she was young when she passed, and the figure that you're doing with your hand, she was wearing a gold necklace, and she was wrapped in white. And then I continue on, I say, and I see her in this bonnet with these strings on the side going down, like a little bonnet. Everyone in the house at this point's really freaked out. The brother and the sister are kind of like, Steph, stop it. But from the kitchen, I hear the daughter whisper something to Joe. And I'm like, hey guys, what are you whispering about over there? I know this is weird. And she says to me not to add fuel to the fire, but the way that you're describing her right now is exactly the way that she is in a picture in my mom's room. She said, you've never seen that picture in my mom's room. And I really didn't know much about my neighbor's daughter who had passed away. I knew that every year they held a mass for her, and Joe's family would go. We never went. And I knew that she had a child that died young. So she tells me that there's this photo upstairs in the room. And I say, you have to show me the photo, then I'll know for sure if this is Maria. She says, I don't think it's a good idea for me to show you the photo. You're very unstable right now. You've just been crying and you're very emotional. I don't want to kind of add fuel to the fire, especially because she knew what I was describing. So I kind of calmed down. I stopped crying and I said, okay, I'm calmer now. I think I'm ready to see the photo. Just the mother and I go upstairs because the 2 kids and Joe are just freaked out at this point. And she walks ahead of me and goes into the room. She turns the picture frame so that it's facing her chest, and she's already in the room. I'm walking towards my neighbor. As I'm walking, it's as if my knees go weak and I start to fall to the floor. By the time I get to where my neighbor is standing with this picture frame at her chest, she hasn't turned it around yet. I'm at oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. I'm at her feet on my knees, crying again, more hysterically, if you could even imagine, than I did downstairs. And I just get out the words, show me the picture, please show me the picture. She turns around the photo. It's this baby in a white, like it's in a white blanket, just like the tacos, how they wrap the babies. It has the bonnet and she's wearing the necklace. And I'm bawling my eyes out and I just keep saying, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. All I can feel is that I lost my child. I lost my baby. But it's in a way that I could only imagine losing a child. So I've never lost a child, but if I could imagine losing a child, this is the pain that I would feel. My heart hurt. I had a pit in my stomach. I was wailing like I've never cried in my life before. And you'll soon to find out that I'm just not a crier. But it was overwhelming, this feeling. So we had this very emotional moment together. And I said to my neighbor, I said, you have to tell me the story of Maria. I need to know why this is happening. So she says, okay, I'll tell you the story. We sit down, I calm down. I'm not crying as much. And she says, so I'm pregnant and I start to have contractions and I go to the hospital. It's time for my epidural, but as I'm having the epidural, there's a bad car accident that happens and the anesthesiologist needs to go to the car accident. So I have to wait. So I'm waiting and I have a scheduled C-section and I jump in. No. Maria wasn't born by C-section. She's showing me being born the normal way. And she said, wait. She said she was supposed to be born by C-section. So I'm in the room. I'm waiting for the anesthesiologist. And she says to me, and then something goes wrong. I stop feeling the baby. So we call to the nurse. We call to the doctors. We get everyone in the room. And my baby died. She said, for the next 24 hours, Steph, I don't remember anything. I remember after that one day passed, I woke up and the nurse says to me, we have to get this baby out of you. So she says, I did end up giving birth to the stillborn. And I said to my neighbor, oh my gosh, what she's showing me is now all making sense. She's showing me being born. She's showing me being held by her dad. I'm like, there's a window to the right-hand side. There's people in the room. I see you. I'm being held. She remembered being baptized. They baptized her when she was born. She remembered kind of everybody holding her. And I was like, her message to you is that even though she was born a stillborn, her soul was still there. She remembers you as her mom. She remembers her father. She remembers the room. Like her soul was still there, even though technically she was passed away. I said, that is her message. She knows that you're her mom. The pain that I'm feeling is your pain. I'm like, she felt your pain while she was still in your stomach of losing a child, but it's only the way she could imagine it. So I was feeling the way I thought someone would feel by losing a child, but she actually could feel the pain of her mother because she was still in the womb. I was like, this is the point of her story. And the mom was confirmed, like, yes, the dad did hold her. Yes, there was the window on the right-hand side that she did get baptized, and she kind of continued the story. For the first time, I was like, oh my God, her message is she knew you were her mom. She knew the pain you felt. And I didn't want to say that this soul was like still carrying that pain, but even just that message and that connection meant so much to the mother. It was this beautiful emotional experience. So I think we're upstairs for probably 45 minutes. I stop crying. She stops crying. We decide to go downstairs back to the three people who are very, very freaked out at this point. And it's kind of in a joking way, like, all right, Steph, like, you got to go. Like, what? We don't want any more of these experiences to happen. We don't know what that was, but this is kind of too much now. And I'm emotional because I've been wailing, crying for almost 2 hours, exhausted. And again, me and Joe kind of go home in this silent state of, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? So after these two experiences, it's kind of undeniable what is happening. There's no way I could know this information. There's no reason why my body should have been reacting the way it did. And that night, Joe kind of said to me, he said, Steph, we've been together for 5 years and I've seen you cry 4 times. And I was kind of like, you count how many times I cry? He's like, no, but the point is, I've never seen you cry like that, and I've never seen you cry at a drop of a hat. He's like, you're a strong person. You don't just cry. And he's like, and you were bawling and wailing. He said that's kind of why he believed me, was because he's never seen me cry before, and all of a sudden I'm bawling on the neighbor's floor. So at this point, we've had the experience with Joe's grandpa. The whole family is kind of now involved because we had to ask so many questions to confirm the story. And now this second story of Maria happening with the neighbor is just starting to confirm things in my mind. At this point, I'm not, okay, I'm a medium. I can talk to dead people. Cool, like, let's go. It's more, what's happening? Why is this happening to me? How do I know these things? And it's all very unclear and unsettling. Of course, you could imagine when something like this happens to you, it's very confusing. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why me. This stuff doesn't really come with a manual of this is how it works and this is what this means and this is what you're going to experience. So kind of after this Maria experience, it was too much to ignore, I would say at this point. So this is when I started getting interested in what was happening. I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to know how I knew these things. And I started to research. I started to look up blogs. I started to listen to other people's podcasts. I started to just Google schools and courses and trying to find someone that could help me explain what was going on. Because it seemed that everyone that I talked to was kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool, but I don't do that. Or, yeah, that's not Reiki, so I don't know what that is. Everyone kind of had more questions than they had answers, and I had the most questions. Before I could really even get any answers or find out anything, I had a few more of these experiences happen. And in the next few episodes, it's kind of, I would say, the beginning, the blossoming, the awakening. I don't know what you would even call it, but these first 4 episodes happened all within about 2 weeks of each other. So it really was a big bam, this is happening, this is taking over your life. And I think the first thing that I figured out was the way that people were reacting. Just in this story, you know that the people who were around were kind of weirded out. From the last story with Luigi, his aunt's kind of like, how do you know this? But how did you know that? It's a lot of questions to me that I couldn't answer. I was like, I don't know how I know that. I don't know how I know what he looked like. I don't know how I knew these details of a story I've never heard that happened before I was born. This weird vibe started happening where people were believing me because it was almost just too much information and it was all too correct for people not to believe me. So there wasn't the I don't believe you portion, but there was a lot of the how are you doing this? How do you know that? And I had no explanation. I had nothing. Like at this point when I was thinking back, I had no, oh yeah, when I was 4 years old, I used to have this dream, or my imaginary friend when I was 7. A lot of the times from what I did read, people would say, oh, this used to happen when I was little, or oh, this would happen when I was this. But in this moment, I couldn't think of anything. To me, it just felt like a light switch turned on. I did my Reiki level 1 and 2. I started to become really good at Reiki, which I just thought was Reiki. I will soon find out it wasn't. And this started happening to me. I had no answers. It was a bomb dropped in my lap. So this explains where my mind is at after these few experiences. In the next episode, I'm going to have another one of these experiences happen to me again. And it's all just coming somewhat together. So thank you for listening to episode 2. My name is Stephanie, and I am the medium in the middle. See you next time.